So the other night, I'm down at the bowling alley. In walks Chris. And I haven't seen Chris in years. We go way back. We graduated from different schools together. Yeah. One night after graduation, I'd picked up this cougar, ended up falling asleep at her place. So the next morning, she's making me breakfast. You know, the normal. In walks Chris, and he's carrying this sketch pad. And I didn't realize this cougar was his mom, but he recognized me. I recognized him. We're sitting there, chit chatting, and he starts sketching in this sketch pad, and he's drawing this woman. And when I tell you, this is probably the most realistic picture I've ever seen in my life. It looked like a black and white photograph. That's just how good he was. I'm like, man, you're really good. He's like, thanks. He goes, but I've had a lot of practice. I've been selling nudes to junior high kids for their lunch money for the last 4 years. I make like $3,000 a year off their lunch money. And I was like, man, that's great, man. I was like, I wish I could do that. And he looks over at his mom and he looks back at me and he goes, I can teach you. But you got to agree to teach me how to pick up women. I'm like, well, that sounds like a good deal. I learn a skill, he learns a skill, and I get to see his mom more often. It's a win-win-win. So for like 6 months, he's teaching me how to draw. And, I'm drawing these women, and I'm like, dude, something just doesn't look right in the chest. It just doesn't look right. He goes, man, I've been doing this for years. I know what I'm doing. I was like, well, I just can't put my finger on it, but something doesn't look right. But you're the expert, so I'll trust what you say. Well, this goes on for like, I don't know, 6 years. And he finally gets his mullet grown out. I've taught him everything I know at that point. And I lose touch with him, So I ask him when he comes in, I'm like, man, where's your mullet? He's like, I had to shave it off. I'm like, what'd you do that for? He goes, after all that training you gave me on my 25th birthday, I went out and I scored a cougar. Went back to her place and I saw a real set of boobs for the first time, and I realized one of them's bigger than the other. I'm like, that's it. That's what I couldn't put my finger on. And he's right, a real set of boobs, one of them's always bigger than the other. And that's why it didn't look right. I'm like, well, that doesn't explain why you'd have to shave off your mullet. He's like, man, I gave up everything. He's like, I realized I'd wasted all these years doing all these drawings that weren't right. I was like, man, I'm sorry to hear that. He goes, I gave up cougar hunting and I went into making cartoons. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. He goes, that's what I do. I'm a cartoonist. I'm like, that's pretty cool too, dude. I was like, but you make enough money off that, to support yourself? And he's like, well, he goes, I supplement my income by designing butterfly tattoos for newly divorced women and tramp stamps for lost souls, tattoos, and piercings in Nevermore Hollows, Georgia. I'm like, dude, that is awesome. It's like, I'm glad everything's working out for you. It's like, but what brings you back to town? He's like, well, we're getting ready to put my mom in a nursing home, and she asked to see you one more time because she wants one more ride on Thunder Thimble.